And there we go. I think everything should be good. Looks like it is. Ahoy, hello. From a sweltering office in New York City right now. It is ridiculous how hot it is today. My poor little AC unit there in the back is doing its absolute best, but it is chugging along. It is absolutely chugging along. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone, if you're also having the weathers, that you're able to stay cool. And we're going to dive in. Let me try and get a little bit of music going. I do have the local recording this time, so if Twitch mute part of the VOD for music that I am allowed to play, thank you very much. I can at least not have to worry about that for the YouTube upload. So let's get this going. Hopefully I don't blow out audio. Okay. Hello, Sahana from the Lurky D&D. Hello. Hope D&D is going well. Lower that just a wee bit. Right, that should be good. I think that should be a decent enough level for audio. If it gets too much, let me know. I can always turn it back down. Let me crank it just a wee bit. I think that looks better. All right, there we go. So I said, hope everyone's doing well. We are going to be starting out painting up General Anakin Skywalker. And again, thank you very, very, very much to Atomic Mass Games who are sponsoring this stream. We can do... I should have put the button for this on the stream deck, but, you know, there we go. You can follow the link, as always, for information about Shatterpoint. And I also have, if you wish to see what I am doing, a link to the recipe card I made that I am following. Thanks for pushing that right off the screen, Robo Quartermaster. Love you. All right. Yeah, we're going to get things going. Let me just actually pull up the recipe card for myself so that I can follow my own recipe. I thought I had done. I think I closed at some point. There we go. All right. So let's just get things going. Starting out with the pants, the trousers, which I'm going to be doing a nice Doomble brown on. One of the issues I found when figuring out the paint scheme for Anakin specifically was his coloration for his costumes seems to vary wildly. So what I've, in the end, wound up doing for a lot of the Shatterpoint minis actually, is I've been taking color inspirations from the action figures, from the toys, because at least the coloration on there is more consistent. Usually like the Hot Toys ones specifically, because they tend to be the from what I can tell, the best quality ones. So they're pretty great for assessing colors and planning out the scheme, which is what I've done for him. It's what I've been doing for... I'm currently working on my own Darth Maul, who we will be painting on stream in August. Excuse me as I just rub heat out of my eye. Go. We're not going to need a lot of Doomball because this is just going to be for the trousers, but there we go. Let me make sure I'm in the right position. Right, let's start getting that on. As always, just a couple of thin coats. And yeah, as I said before, welcome to the new stream schedule. Since beloved friend and team member, Space Valkyries, is no longer going to be streaming on weekends, and instead focusing on their writing, which I am very, very, very excited about, because Val is a fantastic author. I have, in my vicious piratical ways, stolen Val's time slot. It was definitely stolen and in no way coordinated between the two of us. Not at all whatsoever. Oops, slipped a wee bit there, but that's okay. That's why I'm doing that part last, because that'll be nice and dark. So I can easily cover up any spills or slips as I go. It's good enough for the first coat. We'll just let that dry and we'll come back in just a minute for the second. So while that's drying, we may as well move on to the boots, which are going to be, if I remember right, Catachan flesh. Yes. Yes, they are. Did the music immediately die, or is it just very, very quick? I think it might have just gone very, very quiet. That is indeed what happened. Or that song just had a very long, quiet outro. Let's get that going. Over there. Alright. There is no likelihood, I think, of me finishing Anakin on stream today. Because, well, actually, you know what? Maybe we will. Because I came close to not finishing the Clone Troopers, but I was doing 3 of them. So, you know, we're not batch painting, and I don't use much in the way of washers for Anakin. So there's not going to be a huge amount of time. Usually the slow part is waiting for washers to dry. And since I'm not doing that with him for the most part, we're not going to finish the base today, absolutely not, because as I had mentioned, this is part of a commission I'm doing for a friend of mine who, after seeing what I was doing with the preview copy of Shatterpoint I got, bought everything available themselves and wanted me to paint it up for them. So I'm doing a massive commission project, by far the largest scale one I've ever done. And so that's what we're doing with these. Which is why this is the second Anakin model I am painting. And I think this is just kind of almost what I do now, is just paint Shatterpoint miniatures. Because I got a very pleasant surprise earlier this week when Atomic Mass Games, based on the success of these previous streams, so again, thank you very much to everyone who has been showing up and supporting them, I was sent the next wave of releases for it. So I've got a whole bunch more to build and paint, which I will absolutely be posting, and some of it will be streamed. So given that I've got a second Shatterpoint core set that I'm currently working through, I still have to finish my own core set, and I've got now the next wave of releases too, which includes that phenomenal Obi-Wan versus Vader duel set with the gorgeous, gorgeous display board for it. This is what I do now. I paint Shatterpoint. And I'm not mad about it, because these are real fun. I've been having an absolute blast working on these. I've grown as a painter working on them, genuinely. Because shifting out of my usual 28mm scale into the slightly larger one has made a world of difference to some techniques I was struggling to wrap my head around. I think in a certain extent, it's kind of like that thing I hear that what's thing like artists do, where they take a step back from their, if they're doing like a traditional media piece, you take a step back and you look at it through a mirror, just to, or like upside down, to completely change the perspective on it, and that, you know, you can see what it is you need to tweak on it. It's not quite that extensive, like not that difference, but having that even relatively slight difference in scale has really made a world of difference in like a breakthrough for some stuff I was really struggling with. So that's been really, really, really lovely. And honestly, it's nice to not have to squint to paint minis every so often. That is especially nice. second layer on the trousers. I think this might be good enough. May do just one more on that, but I think those trousers are looking kind of okay. Let's just do the second one on the boots. And I do have on the desk too the model I already painted, so I can use that as a reference for myself. Which I've found has been really nice for doing this second set, that the ability to just pull out the mini I already painted, which has been really nice for just getting my my head out of that space of the part of the paint process where it's like, everything is awful, this looks bad. And it's because, yeah, that part of the process, you haven't done the highlights yet. You've got only half of the coats on. Of course it looks bad. It's not done. If it looked good at this point, you could stop. You've got more work to do. So knowing that I've already gone through that process and being able to see the finished result has actually been remarkably helpful. Yep. Good for those. So now let's get the mix going for his robe. I didn't have a color that I liked for his kind of purple-ish robe, so I experimented a bit, mixed a bunch together, and I eventually settled on a mix of Citadel's Blood Reaver Flesh and Screamer Pink. About a 50-50 mix. That got me pretty much where I wanted to be with it, so we're going to now try and recreate that mix. And hopefully this gets me where I need to be. And similar to where I landed with mine. It's roughly about that 50-50. I think that's a little heavy on the pink. So I'm going to mix just a little more of the Blood Reaver in. Isn't going to be, I don't want it to be quite that vibrant a pink. A bit more. That looks okay. That looks fairly decent to the comparison. Yeah, it's the one I painted before. Maybe still a little pink, but that might just be because it's on the brush. Going over it, I layer it on because I'm going over a dark grey base. Yeah, I think this is going to dry pretty close to what I want it to be. Paint is a little thinner than I intended because I just refreshed my wet palette, but that's okay. It's always better to do more thin coats than have it be too thick. And if it's thin, it's going to dry nice and fast, so... The coloration might be slightly different too on this one from the one I painted earlier, just because I used a rattle can for mine, and this one I used a different, it's still like a dark grey primer, but I used an airbrush for this one because I've fallen in love with airbrush priming. So much more control over it. But the rattle can works just fine, and that's what's in the recipe. Ultimately, it's going to be almost the same. Just might be ever so slightly darker. Hey, Lady Luck, welcome in. How are you doing? Is it as swelteringly hot up by you as it is down by me? I am absolutely dying in here. Like, I've actually got... I just realized I was about to say I've got the office door mostly closed to try and keep the coolness in, and I realized when I walked out earlier to refresh my water, I didn't close the door after me, so it's actually wide open again. So we're not getting that benefit. But that's fine. Is warm. Susie is not impressed. Trying to decide if I want to go buy myself things. Yeah, Kiros was really not feeling it on our walk this morning. But now I'm curious as to what things you are considering buying yourself. And you know full well I'm curious because I'm going to enable you in doing it. Because that's how our friendship works. Yeah. I'm not being particularly gentle with this because I'm going to be doing a black over the tabard part of the robe. So I don't need to be particularly careful with it. No, I'm good. I'm okay. Hey, Wolf Tracks, welcome in, welcome in. How you doing? Hope things are going well. Welcome to Shatterpoint Saturday, or Shatterday, to give it its shortened form name. I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the things I also exceptionally like about the Shatterpoint minis, and I assume this would be true also of stuff like Star Wars Legion, because the costumes or the character designs in most cases are things that somebody had to wear, at least on the human or humanoid models. They aren't ridiculously overcomplicated. Like, they make actual physical sense as items of clothing. So they're a little more straightforward than some of the really wild stuff that you get with a lot of the 3D sculpted, like, from scratch with no reference models. And it makes it a little more straightforward, I found, because you don't have lots of little fiddly-gribbly bits. They're still fun little accessory bits to add some extra detail, but they're not excessive, which is quite nice, I found. It just makes my life just that little bit easier. And I'm a big fan of things that make my life easier. I very much support it. I posted about this on the various social platforms last night because I started sketching out my Darth Maul model. The fact that they sculpted Maul's skin patterning onto the mini made me so very happy. So very happy. It made it so much easier to paint because I didn't have to freehand that. Trying to decide if I will finally break down and pick up an OLED Switch as a present for myself. Do it. You should absolutely do it. That reminds me, I need to, for this upcoming trip, I should actually break out my Switch and see what I want to load onto it to play. It will not be Tears of the Kingdom because I won't be having that much spare time. Maybe I should finally finish Bravely Default 2. But given that I still haven't finished Final Fantasy 16, or indeed played it since last time I streamed it, I don't necessarily want to go back to another big, long, sprawling RPG. I think we've talked about this a lot on streams, about how I very much these days prefer the shorter, like 10 to 12 hour games. Give me those. Give me more of those. That's what I have time for. I can finish those. I can finish those. In fact, what's happened with Final Fantasy 16 is an example of my problem, right? Like, I got a good 20 or so hours into it, and then my life exploded, and I haven't had time to go back and play it since. And that one I'm going to go back and finish because it's Final Fantasy and that's, like, 90% of my personality. But if it's a series I'm not as invested in, this is my entire problem. Something happens, I lose track, and I never go back and finish the game. I think that's why I find myself much more drawn to indie titles lately. Like, I had a huge blast playing Dordogne. Dordogne was perfect for me. It was a great story, it was fun, it was pretty chill, it hit me in the emotions, and it was about 8 hours long. Actually, you know what I should do? What I should load onto the Switch? Given that my intention to keep up the hobby streak is bring stuff to paint with me whilst I'm on the trip, and it'll probably be more of the Shatterpoint stuff. I should, because I think they have the Lego Star Wars games on Switch, right? I should grab those. My issue isn't I don't want to, but I prefer playing Switch on TV, and my launch one's overheating more often. See, there you go. There you go. I mean, that's a reason to... Really, what you're doing is you're saving... By buying yourself the OLED version, you're just saving off a future problem. You're saving future Lady Luck. The Switch eventually overheating and giving up the ghost. And then not having one at all. So really, you're doing your future self a favor. And given that you, like me, I presume, tend to be more of an enemy of your future self. That's a rarity, so you should embrace the opportunity. Next system is making me be a year. I mean, that is true. The next system probably isn't too far. But you know what? You can always sell it. You can always sell the OLED. And again, if you're anything like me, you will say that and then won't do it. But, you know, you can use that to justify it now. And then later on, you can curse yourself for saying you would and then not doing it. Absolutely will not sell it. Oh yeah, in that closet back there, I have all of my old game consoles since I moved to the US. There's a PS2 up there. Actually, that's a lie. I don't have a PS4 in there anymore because I sent that to Zero when his gave out the Ghost. Hey Lily, hello, welcome in, good time zone. But my Xbox 360 is in there. I think there's an original Xbox in there somewhere, which is just a brick at this point, but yeah, it's there. Hope you're doing well, Lily. Hope things are going well for you. Just double check my recipe card. Okay, yeah, we're going to do the face next. Just to get very light. This is going to look terrible for the first coat, but that's by design, because it should. This, especially on the face, needs to be 2 thin coats. At least 2 thin coats, possibly more, given that I'm going over a bit of a darker base coat. Or prime, rather. The face absolutely needs to make sure I have all that detail protected. In fact, what I would normally do for a mini like this is what I did for Obi-Wan, and keep the head separate. Because sometimes it's easier to paint the super fine details on the face, but Anakin has enough access to it. It's not a problem. And for these showcase videos, I'm trying not to do any excessively complicated stuff. I'm trying not to do sub-assemblies as much. I'm trying not to do I'm not using an airbrush. I'm not doing any weird fancy stuff because I want to make it approachable. The idea is that, somebody could go back and watch one of these videos and go, oh, that's not that difficult. I could do that. I can get this model onto the table relatively quickly and easily myself. Which is really my approach to mini painting is, trust me, if I can do it, any of you can. Because my shaky hand having ADHD riddled brain self can do this, anyone can. I'm not painting to showcase quality. Nothing I'm painting here is going to win any awards. But like 90% of the people don't care about that. They just want to be able to play the game and have fun with it. Or paint cool minis and put them on a shelf where they look cool from, you know, the viewing distance you usually look at things on a shelf from. And it gets minis painted at a reasonable pace, to a reasonable quality. And I think that's what most of us just want. So you don't just have the continually growing pile of grey looming. Not that I don't have that anyway, because I have a problem and buy entirely too many minis. But that's because I fill the void in my soul with plastic. Or lately expensive cardboard as well. Because, you know, I'm British and therefore don't have a soul. And so I fill the hole with consumerism instead. Which is going to make it more fun, though, when I go and start doing well, not Imperial side, because the Empire, I almost called them the Imperium. The Empire doesn't exist at this time zone where the Shatterpoint core set is set. But, you know, everyone in the Separatist Alliance or in the eventual Empire has British accents. Come on, we know that. Death Star, full of British character actors. When I eventually get around to painting him, and if I paint Count Dooku on stream, will I be spending like 90% of the stream trying to emulate Christopher Lee's voice? Yes, I will. I will be doing exactly that. Because I'm insufferable. And do things that make me laugh. Wait. Shake. I do need to get back to watching the rest of the Bad Batch too, and going on to Rebels on that note. Just so that when more sets eventually come out, I know who they are. Because I am aware of everything that has currently been announced, but you know, there is a huge, rich universe to pull from. And I'm sure they'll be taking full advantage of that over the years. Because as far as I've been able to tell, Shatterpoint has done very well for itself since launch. As well it should. It's a fun game from what I haven't actually like sat down and played a full game of it. But I did try the demo at Adepticon, and I had an absolute blast with it. And my friend Kaz, the Mini Arcanist, taught me how to play Marvel Crisis Protocol, and the two games have a lot of overlap. And yeah, I love that, by the way, that they put the rules up for free. Huge fan of that. Huge fan of that. It plays very cinematically. Is that a word? Cinematically? In a cinematic style? Like, the game has clearly been designed around spectacle. And from what I saw of the demo, when we went through it, nailed that. It nailed that. It does lead to some interesting and fun circumstances, too, with the way that, you know, we always say there's the dice tell the story, right? And when I was going through the demo game, the story the dice decided to tell was that the battle droids were going to be more competent than they have ever been in anything that is canon ever. Because I rolled ridiculously well for my battle droids. Like, they absolutely blew apart the clone troopers. And that made me very happy. Because I could just sit there going, Roger, Roger. Hey, Mac, welcome in. Thank you, thank you. We're just getting the base tones on currently. Do one more thin scrag brown coat for the face. We're very close to having all of the base tones on. Double checking against my old. I do think I did a wash on that. I didn't do it on the recipe card because unfortunately I forgot to write down some of it as I was going. I do think I put scrag on the wrong part. I do think I did a wash on the trousers, so I'm going to do that just to darken them just a little bit. I think I'm going to do the same for the as well. In fact, I'm going to do that now. Just going to mix it up just a little bit because I'm allowed to. Because they're my minis and I can. But technically this one isn't my mini, but you know. Give it just a little bit. Use, I think, that's too purple. Drukai Violet's going to be too purple. I think I'm just going to give it a Brax. Both love and loathe autocorrect and bright sunspots. Yeah, autocorrect can be useful, but it can also be an absolute ducking nightmare. I hope you're enjoying your bright sunspots, and I hope it's not as ridiculously warm up in Canada land as it is down here. Because I have my AC going as full blast as I can get it, and I am still sitting here sweating. For the belt. It's warm, but not too bad. Good. Thursday was kind of hot, but pretty lucky. Up further north, it actually snowed. Wow. You know, I don't remember. I don't think we actually got snow here this year, which is kind of wild. Because usually that's a significant aspect of a New York winter, is everything being buried under snow and then being a miserable set of slush for months. But we didn't actually have that happen this year. Yep. Alright, so while that dries, let's go to the Corvus Black for the gloves and the tablet. Which actually, oh no, I mixed for this, didn't I, as well? I wanted it to be a little kind of off blue, so it's a mix of Incubi and Corvus Black, so I need to make another mix. So we will do that. Shaky, 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 shaky. Shook, 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 shook. Okay. It's also worth noting, since I am approaching this a little bit more of a long-form tutorial, you probably shouldn't lick your brush the way I do. It's a terrible habit of mine. I can't get out of it. I do it subconsciously. It's not the best thing in the world. Just, you probably shouldn't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. Because, you know, 90% of my teaching style. I say learn to do things properly, and then you can start making it, you know, getting weird with it. It's good. It's important to have the fundamentals down before you start deviating. Because then you have a better idea of what works and what doesn't. Years of chewing on pens have led up to this moment. Oh. Oh. You have no idea. That was so much worse for me growing up. Because I grew up in the UK school system in the 90s. And it was not permitted to use ballpoint pens. We had to use fountain pens. And the sheer volume of ink that I swallowed as a result of this probably explains a great deal about how I am as an adult. And also why I cannot use fountain pens today, like I refuse to do it. Ruku, hey, welcome in, mate. How you doing? What were you up to? What were you doing? Let me do you a quick shout out during your shot. I'm piloting the ship solo today, so. Oh, the forest. I don't know either of those things, but Project Zomboid sounds fun. Project Zomboid sounds fun, especially if it's a thing that can be done with friends. I'm also not familiar with the forest, but I presume, based on the innocent-sounding title, that the forest is terrifying and creepy. Because I know how games work, and that sounds like a horror game. That sounds like something that's spooky and creepy. Really is, but also pretty neat. Oh, you know it, Mac? Nice. What I also need to get more into the habit of doing is making sure I always do downward strokes, because it's so much easier if you just follow gravity and paint down towards you. But I really struggle at remembering to do that. I always wind up just wanting to move the brush upwards. But you have so much less control over it that way, but I don't know why it's what my muscles just want to do. Like, I know it's better if I do it. We're doing well. We're making pretty decent progress. We are just about done getting Anakin's base coats on. So we'll be able to move on to some nice highlights. I'm curious to see if I'm going to be able to finish him. I keep missing a streams because time zone sucks. Well, honestly, I haven't been streaming all that much the last week or two because time zones do suck. But for day job reasons, I've had to miss a few streams of late. So it's really only been the Saturday streams for the most part. I finally started getting back onto the regular schedule this week. But it was a little rough there for a week or so. Hey, Banana Mobster, welcome in, welcome in. But with that is to say, with the way a lot of stuff has been going with the day job, I'm very glad to have streaming. Streaming has been a wonderful, wonderful escape. And when I wasn't able to do it for even just a little bit, so it wasn't long, it was like a week that I really was off schedule, but I found I really missed it. Streaming has been wonderful for my mental health. Which sounds bizarre, right? You would think something like, oh yeah, interact with a bunch of people online. That sounds terrible for your mental health. But I have been very fortunate and tend to have like lovely, lovely people around. Dog bits! Thank you for the dog bits. I appreciate that. gloves. Spin them around, get the underside. There we go. A little bit of a weird angle, just trying to get the inner part of the glove. Which isn't massively important, I just don't want to... It's an outlet. It is an outlet, and especially when, since the pandemic hit and I started working remote, I don't get a lot of in-person social time anymore because I work from home now. And I hit the realization of how much of my social interaction was the people I work with. So I don't really see a lot of people in person anymore because most of the friends, but still a few around, but most of the friends who were around left the city, as I'm currently planning on doing myself. So I don't get a lot of socialization time, and streaming was the solution for that. And it worked shockingly well. And let me find some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. Oops. Adjust the light a little bit now, so he's a little less shiny. So we're starting to get where I need to be. I think I think one coat is good enough for the tabard. Let's go back to his... You can tell how hot it is because even with the fresh wet palette, my paint is still starting to dry on. That's how hot it is. That is ridiculous. Yeah. And speaking of streaming and things that are nice about it, again, this is a sponsored stream. I am working with Atomic Mass Games to help promote Star Wars Shatterpoint. So hitting !Shatterpoint and just clicking on the link really helps, because that's how they're measuring the success of this partnership, is by how many people click on the affiliate tracking link. So whether you have or haven't, click it again. It helps. Keep clicking it out. It helps me. It helps a lot. And there's also the I don't support or promote things I don't genuinely believe in or enjoy. So I can genuinely, honestly say I'm having absolute blast painting this stuff up. Right, so I think that's good for the base coats, with the exception of the hair, which I did with Dryad Bark. That's why I have Dryad Bark. The final of the base coats, well, with the exception of the lightsaber, but I like to do the lightsaber at the very end. I don't know why. I don't know why I like to do the lightsaber at the end. It just feels like a good finishing touch. Like a nice stopping point. A little bit of watering down. And in with the hair. Now trying to be just a little more cautious. I don't want to have to redo some of the face base coloration. Hey Martimus, ahoy, welcome in, welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're able to stay cool. That'll do for that. Absolutely sweating. All right, just careful, Kiros. Kiros, buddy, can you not be right behind my chair? I'm just gonna swing back and grab just a little bit of water real fast. Do I make lightsaber sounds when I paint them? Of course I do. How could you not? If you don't make the lightsaber sounds, you're doing it wrong. You gotta do the... Yeah, you have to. It's like any, whenever I paint parts of Obi-Wan, I have to sit there and go, hello there. Going back to pick up a package, my Pride MTG Bear Space playmat came in. Nice. If you don't mind, pop a picture of that in the Discord. I'd love to see what that looks like. Let's just go bring it back up just a wee bit on the trousers. Just leaving the wash in the recesses. It's going to brighten up real fast, just the most elevated parts. Good, that's all that takes. Now, let's start from the bottom up. And we'll start with the highlights on the boots. Which actually, I believe I used just Moonfang Brown for that too, didn't I? Yes, I did. All right. Okay, just a wee bit more of it. Just a wee bit more. Oh, you're one of my favorite nerds. Daw. I appreciate that, Mac. You're one of my favorite nerds too. Even if, or possibly because, you are so wonderfully feral. Alright, so for the boots, I don't necessarily bother with an good lord, extensive. I was doing a weird hybrid of excessive and extensive highlighting on them. I just want to, what I usually like to do for leather is just sort of almost stipple along the edge just to get that kind of worn leather look. I don't do necessarily like typical edge highlighting of just running the brush along the edge to get a smooth line, because that's not really how leather works. Leather doesn't get worn in a smooth pattern. It chips and cracks and kind of does what it wants to. So we're just gonna just carefully just dot those bits in there. Mostly focusing on the straps, because those are the parts that would move the most. And a little bit more around anywhere where there's creases, because again, that's how leather works. Leather cracks where it moves the most. Just a little along the toe. Shifting focus on the back part. Got this little strappy bit going down the back, so we'll get that too. Trace along the bigger creases. All right, there we go. First boot side is done. Move on to the second. One thing I'm very much looking forward to about eventually moving is being able to completely redo like a studio setup, like themed around being and specifically construct a paint streaming space around being able to record and do lighting for streams. I don't really have the space to do that right now, and whenever I start looking at places, that's going to now be a consideration. What would be a dream is if I can find a place that has a nice like big garage that I don't need to use to keep a car in, that I can convert into a studio for painting and crafting. That would be lovely. We'll have to see what's available, of course. That might be a pipe dream, but we shall see. We shall see. I've seen a lot of, like, the more pro mini painters I follow have got a lot of setups kind of like that. Like, especially ones who do it for a living, which, you know, makes sense because that's at that point is their work area. So, of course, they've invested in it. It is quite nice. All right. Let's just get a little bit along the front slat. There we go. I'm going to call the boots good. The boots are good enough. The boots are done. You can't really see super well because of the way the shadows are falling, unfortunately. But that's one of the things I'm talking about, is being able to do better like lighting where I can both see the mini to paint it, but also the shadows aren't ridiculously stark for streaming. See if I can actually just lower it just a little bit to show off. Yeah, it's not really working out super well. There we go. Kind of see the detailing on the boots there. Yep. All right, so let's move on to the trousers, which have a highlight of, I believe I used Mornfang for these as well. I think I might have. I think these got just yeah, these didn't get much of it. Actually, I think I just left these with Doomball. That is actually what I've done. I've just highlighted these in Doomball, so let's just do a little more along the creases, and then those will be good. Today is supposed to be local, gather again, and get checking out. Went to my store and greatly overestimated the price of that endeavor. Oh yeah, well, yes. Unfortunately, for the most part, mini painting is not a cheap hobby. However, my advice, if you're looking to just kind of get into things for the first time, be it any kind of tabletop wargaming, eBay is your friend. eBay is your friend. Hey, Daspif, welcome in, welcome in. Because what you will frequently do is you will find people who are selling a force they've already created and painted, either because the meta shifted and they're a tournament gamer and they don't want it anymore. Or what you will frequently see, especially around, like, not so much for stuff like Shatterpoint, which is designed around the more skirmish side of things, but the larger scale war games, especially when a new version of something comes out and there's a starter kit, what will frequently happen is, to keep the costs down, people will buy it. And most often, like, a starter kit comes with 2 armies, right? Like Shatterpoint came with, you know, you know, goodies versus baddies. You got Anakin and Ahsoka versus Ventress and Maul. What a lot of times people will do is their army that they've already been playing for a while is one half of that. So what they'll do is keep the half they want and set the other half up on eBay to try and recoup some costs to the core set, because they want them, either they want the minis or they also want like the new rule book, or they want the terrain that comes with it. So they'll take the army they don't want and slap it up on eBay, and that can be that can sometimes get pretty cheap, especially if something has just come out and a lot of people are doing that. Like, that's an amazing time to go hunt around on eBay. Which, be very, very clear here, hunting around on eBay for people offloading their starter kits that they don't want is very, very, very different than people scalping it. Don't support scalpers, ever. But people who are offsetting and offloading just half of the box because it's the half they don't want, you can usually get a pretty good deal on it. Or what you can also sometimes keep an eye out for is, hey Sparks, welcome in, people who are selling old minis that might not have the best paint jobs in the world, but you can strip the paint easy. Stripping paint is easy to do. My go-to for that is a product, Simple Green. You could just, you soak, it's good for metal or plastic or resin. You soak it in Simple Green for 24 hours and then just take a soft toothbrush. That's what I did. It was Kislev Flash I mixed in. I was trying to remember what mix I used for the highlights on the tablet. You can take, yeah, soak it, quick bit of toothbrush, and boom, done. It's completely stripped and ready to repaint, which is why I say there's no such thing as ruining a mini when you paint it. Switch down to a slightly smaller brush for this part. You can always strip a mini and redo it. Always. I've done it with a lot of the minis I had as a teenager. I brought them back last time I went to visit the UK, and I've been slowly stripping them off so I can repaint them again. You Who Framed Roger Rabbit? The minis you type? Well, hey, no, that's different because it's more like giving them a what's the skin treatment? It's like an acid peel, which I might be phrasing that wrong because that sounds slightly more terrifying. But you know, that skin treatment you can get where you like soak your feet or your hands in it, and it like takes off the top layer of the skin, so you just have like the soft fresh layer. Like it might be called like acid something or other, but they might call it something a little more, you know, marketable and appealing. But it's essentially that. It's essentially that. It's not you know, putting them in the dip. It's giving them a skin treatment. Doing right now is just going over the raised parts of the tablet. Just to start getting that highlighting, we can see we're already starting to get some of that volume coming in. Acid peel treatment. I think that's what it's. I mean, that's what it is. That's what they essentially do, is soak your hands and feet in some sort of acid. But you know, it's just, you know, and then like it does something to the skin and makes it super soft, so it just kind of peels off real easy. I don't know. I mean, you can just take one look at me and say, and you can tell I clearly don't know the first thing about beauty treatments. If I did, I wouldn't look like this. Although that said, I do enjoy occasionally doing. I haven't done it in a very, very, very long time. Actually, I think the last time I did it was when I was at a like an onsen, but like a theme park style onsen in Japan, where you know, you put your feet in the water and the fish come and just eat the dead fin. Chemical peel. That's the one Banana loves there. Chemical peel is what I'm thinking of. Yes. So not acid, chemical, which is totally different. But yeah, there's like treatments where you like, oh, put your feet in the water and the fish come and eat the dead skin off you, and it just tickles. Those are fun. I've done those before. Stop laughing. I feel so bad if I kick the fish. Well, you don't need to worry about it, Mac, because think about it. And you might be saying, after, you know, there's a particularly well-viewed clip of mine in when I was playing Stardew and voicing my opinions on fish. That only proves it, because the existence of this treatment proves that fish would eat you given half the chance. You can't trust fish. That's why I'm pescatarian. I'm happy to eat the fish because they would eat me if they got the chance. It's the first layer of highlights done on the robe. So we're now going to take that and mix just a little more flesh tone in, just to get that nice light aspect to it. Lights down just a little bit as well. gradually, slowly lightening and lightening and lightening this. Now we're going to do basically the same type of thing, but now we're going to go really focusing on just the sharper edges. So if you were doing this for more of a display piece type, you could spend a long time like going back, and I do this with faces a lot. Go back through and like then you can glaze over the previous layer to really make them blend well together. But despite this being a commission, I'm doing this to tabletop quality. So I'm not going to spend time doing that. I will do it a little bit on the face, probably, just because the face is so much the focal point. But for the robes, and this is one of those examples where it arguably could have made sense to not put his arm on, because I could access the chest a little easier. Like I said, for these, I don't want to mess around with sub-assemblies, because my goal is to try and keep these as accessible and approachable as possible. So I don't want people to start worrying about... Like, a sub-assembly isn't necessarily complicated, but, you know. I think in a lot of cases, somebody may have gotten excited and built their minis out the box. So I don't want to make somebody feel like, oh no, they screwed up already. And now they can't paint it. You know what I mean? Besides, if I make it a little harder on myself, it just makes it a little more reasonable to what somebody who is a little newer to doing mini painting might be experiencing. Acid peel, chemical peel, both of them sound horrifying, but that may be because I had to take chemistry in college and my mind goes to the chemicals you don't want anywhere near your skin. Yep. It also makes me think of the, now that the concept of these like peels and these treatments is just making me think of like the Bacta tanks from Star Wars. It makes me wonder, like, is there a beauty treatment like that where you just get soaked in a tank? But it's not for health regeneration, it's for like a beauty treatment. Having said that, I went a little too thick on those, so I am going to just sort of glaze those down just a little bit on the back. There we go. The red robes with the black watch. Oh, the tabard. Yeah, no, Anakin's design is really fun. Moisturize me from Doctor Who. Wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. But yes. What was her name? Cassandra? They're just stretched out skin. Yeah. Horrible. Horrible. Let's have a quick check. Yeah, I think that's coming along okay. I think I need just one more highlight to bring up those robes just a little more. I'm going to go much heavier on the flesh tone. I like using sort of fleshy, peachy tones for highlighting cloth, because I think it looks decently a decent approximation of how cloth tends to fade and fray at the edges. There we go. So we've got that nice little sharp edge there, which when you think of cloth, you don't think of sharp edges, but the way light catches things does tend to be. And sometimes, you know, you want to move a little bit away from what makes logical sense into what's going to make the mini look best. And sometimes that means, you know, telling physics to go and take a seat in the corner for a little bit. Just focusing on the uppermost edges. the areas where I would want light to catch the most. It can be subtle. Subtle is good. Subtle is very good. It's much easier to make something sharper and more prominent than it is to dial it back, in my opinion. So always lean more on the subtle side and punch it up if I have to, rather than the other way around. There we go. I'm going to call that pretty good for the tabard. Like, we've got some nice highlights in there. It's got some nice volume to it. I'm going to call that good. You should totally make a painter mini, just splash the paint all over after making it all as perfect as you do. I mean, there was a YouTube channel, Midwinter Minis, who did, they didn't paint them first, I don't think, but they just took a bunch of minis and just painted like 100 coats of paint on them just to see what happened. And it turned out interesting. Turned out very interesting. All right. So with the tabard done, oh, sorry, the robe done, we're going to move on to that tabard now, which we're going to go to just straight Incubi Darkness for the first. Bring it down for the highlight phase. What we're going to go over this a lot when I paint Maul and the Mandos, but my highlighting method for black is to highlight it with blue. Because what I think a lot of people do is and I understand the desire to do this. I've done this in some cases myself, and sometimes you want this effect. But I find if you highlight black with gray and white, what winds up happening is the whole thing just then starts to look gray. Whereas I find if you highlight blacks with blue, it looks more black. Like, it maintains the black feeling of it. So my default for highlighting black in general is always going to be either a black or off black base, and then a dark blue highlight followed by a lighter kind of desaturated blue for the edge highlights. And, you know, maybe mix in some grays if I want some really like bright parts of it, but I find it works real well. So just a lot of that is down to aesthetic choice too. Some people might like the way that black looks highlighted in grays and whites. Kind of like how really black hair will look blue in certain light. Exactly. So a lot of it comes down to how do you want it to be a really black, or do you want it to be a little more kind of gray adjacent? Like if I wanted it to be kind of a dark gray, I wouldn't use blue. I only do this when highlighting actual black. But you know, for a lot of these minis, especially when you get onto the Empire side or the Separatist Alliance side, like Maul, like the Mandos tend to have, especially on the Death Watch side, a very black armored. Dooku is going to be very black robes. Vader, black robes. That's going to be my approach for all of them. Which actually is why I decided to do Maul and the Mandos. Because the planned content for this was going to be one full squad from each side. And I was really tempted from the the galactic side to do Ahsoka because it's Ahsoka. But Ahsoka is paired with Bo-Katan and Clan Kryze, whereas Anakin is paired with Rex and the Clone Troopers. And I really, really wanted to do the Clone Troopers because I wanted to demonstrate their white armor, because that's going to be something that comes up time and time again in these sets. Like, the set that just came out for Barriss has Clone Commandos in it. When we eventually move on to doing the original trilogy era, that's going to have Stormtroopers in it. So, hello, Stephen. Hi, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for that follow there. Appreciate that. How's Stephen doing? How was the rest of Did you finish Bramble? Did you finish it? I know you were getting really caught up in it. I don't know how long the game is. I don't know how long you've been playing it. But welcome, Raiders. Welcome, welcome. For those who do not know me, hi, hello. I'm Priskineers, aka the Painting Pirate, he, him pronouns, variety streamer, miniature painter, and your next stop on your Team Cypher Saturday train. Choo choo. All aboard. We are currently doing a hashtag sponsored content stream. I thought we were close to an end, but apparently not. Ran over an hour and still more to go. Don't you hate it when that happens? You're like, okay, we'll do just a little more because I think it's getting close to an end, and the game's just like, nah, son, no, mate, you're still going. There's more. So congratulations, you've made it to the end of the first half of the game. Welcome, welcome. I am currently working on General Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars Shatterpoint. As I mentioned, this is some sponsored content. I have been very fortunate that Atomic Mass Games, the creators of Shatterpoint, and Marvel Crisis Protocol, and Star Wars Legion, and X-Wing, and a number of other wonderful, fine tabletop offerings, I'm working with them to promote Star Wars Shatterpoint, which came out about a month or so ago. It's a new skirmish game. Miradew, thank you for the resub. Really appreciate that. I've been having a ton of fun painting them. And indeed, if you do !Shatterpoint in chat, you'll find a link to have all the information about Star Wars Shatterpoint, if you are so interested. And if you aren't, go click the link and follow it anyway, because that helps me. You don't have to buy anything, just look at it. Just take a look at it. Derek Repto, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome aboard. And also, if you are interested in what I am doing, because this is my second time painting this mini, I painted mine in my own core set, but I am working on a commission project because somebody who I know commissioned me to paint their core set as well, and a bunch of other stuff. So this is theirs. If you type !Anakin in chat, you will get a link to the recipe that I am following that I created for this. Curious what chat really. I also just realized my music has stopped because YouTube in the audio library does not like to automatically scroll pages. So let's get some music back. But of course, thank you once again, Stephen, for bringing everybody over. Now, if you've been riding the Team Cypher Raid train from Urban Stephen, do of course take care of yourselves, stretching, hydration, snacks, all that good stuff. Otherwise, settle in. We're just we're chatting and we're just chatting and painting. Oh, no worries, Stephen. It's totally okay. I know what it's like to get into that mindset of you're in a game, you're really enjoying it, and you feel like you're getting close to the end, and you just want to push through that last little bit. Like, especially when you're streaming, because then if you drop it, you're like, oh, well, now I've got like an hour to do, so that isn't going to make a full stream. So now what do I do? Do I plan to finish it and then do something else? It makes scheduling complicated and weird, so totally get it. Totally fine. I appreciate you coming over and raiding at all. I appreciate that you are here, period. I appreciate that anyone is here, period. I just appreciate people showing up. I know there are you have many options for where to spend your time on your Saturdays, be it out doing things or here on Twitch with many of the delightful offerings that the platform has. So I am pleased, thrilled, and appreciative that you would choose to spend some of it here with me. It means a great deal. It genuinely... I went kind of marketing thing with that, but I genuinely do appreciate it. It genuinely does mean a lot. Like, we were literally just talking about how, for me and for many of us, I know this is the case for Stephen as well, streaming has been wonderful for my mental health, because it's a form of socialization that in a work from home era I don't get that much. And for me especially, it satisfies my performance itch, because I am an extrovert, I am a theater kid, I am like the fairies from Peter Pan, I die if I don't get attention. So it really helps me in that regard. Now, you are quite literally helping me survive. Yeah. And it's always nice for the many of us who do this as not our primary source of income. It's always nice to be able to feel like we're doing something productive that isn't the day jobs, which can be very grindy and repetitive and soul crushing, especially mine of late. So people showing up and engaging with the content we create really does uplift the soul. Which, as I said, I don't have a soul because I'm British, but the attention fills the void where my fills the void where my soul should be. I would make jokes about what I accidentally said instead, but this is a sponsored stream and I'm trying to behave myself for once. Because I would very much like people to continue working with me, and I promise I can be professional when I really, really put my mind to it. I promise. I promise I can. I can do it. Really. Please continue to work with me. All right. There we go. We got those highlights in on the belt. You got a little soul to pop out shanties as well as you do. I mean, shanties are just another thing that fills the void. We're actually getting shockingly close to him being kind of done. So we're going to move on to the next part of the face, which will be Cadian flesh tone, but I also need to keep the scrag brown ready. And for the face, we're going to get fancy. I'm going to bust out the fancy brushes. It's the Artist Opus set. You do not need fancy brushes to do anything like this. However, I am not going to lie and claim that they don't help. I don't use the Artist Opus brushes much because they are expensive. And I don't want to, burn them out. But I try to use them a little. I use them. I'm trying to use them more than I have been because they fell into that spot of, yes, they were expensive, and so I tried to use them sparingly. But then, what was the point of buying expensive brushes if I'm not going to use them? Which is, I think, a mindset that many of us who didn't grow up astoundingly well off can be familiar with. To store in your house forever, exactly. It's like my inventory in RPGs. I can't use it now. I might need it for a thing later. Remember that thing I said about not licking the brushes? Do as I say, not as I do. Got those down there, and then I'm going to just mix very slightly some Kislev, or Acadian rather, in with the Scrag Brown. So we want just a bit of a hybrid here. Money doesn't grow on trees, exactly, right? You got to save the good stuff for the right time. Yep. Show off your fancy pirate skills sometimes. It's a sentiment I... Oops, if I take the lid off the brush. Sentiment I appreciate, Mac, but find very difficult to actually, wrap my head around. What I forgot to do, actually, before I start doing this, we're going to do the eyes first. Because if I do the eyes first, it's easier to fix it when I inevitably screw them up. So we're going to take just a little bit of Rhinox hide. Just a little bit. We're going to thin it really far down. And this is where the small, very pointy brushes really come into their own. So let me put Anakin back up here. Hold on. I gotta just run just a little bit of Rhinox hide into the eye socket. There we go. And same again for the other one. This is the part of the eyes that's easy. There we go. So, okay, so we got the dark bits in the eyes. Again, I don't know how well, but actually, let me try and zoom the camera in real close for this part. Kind of see that. Yeah, you can kind of see, and because he does have a fairly heavy brow on the model, which is really nice. But let's make this part a little difficult to see. So now, it is time to bust out one of my favorite paints I own. My Bold Titanium White by Monument Hobbies. One of the best white paints I've ever worked with. I need to get more Monument Hobbies paints. I've been playing around with them a little bit, and I've absolutely fallen in love with them. You're fighting off the field of not worthy of nice things. I don't work hard enough for everyone here, and I salute you and your rebellious nature with brain goblins. Look, spite is a powerful motivator. And spite at my own brain counts. Science. It's shook up. Okay. Science. Just filter it down ever so slightly. Now this is the part that gets tricky, because now the technique I like to use for eyes that I read about and worked on and found that I really did like it is, rather than doing the white and then trying to dot in the middle, is do dots of white either side. Because that it's a little easier to do it that way. And upside down to try and get a good angle on it. And for any aspect of a mini, but especially for eyes, do not be afraid to move it around into weird angles.
Space!
Hello, Val. With the perfect timing to set off a nice loud alert to make me jump as I'm trying to do this eye. There we go. Okay. So it looks a little wonky. The middle of the eye is a little larger than I want it to be. Oh, that's better. That was so slight. That's better. I'm a helper. You are. You helped me by letting me steal your time slot. That's been, yeah. So the issue with eyes frequently too is you'll get one dead on, and then the other one will be looking off in the other direction. highly, highly recommend. Yeah, experiment around, find out the technique works for me. It might not work for you, but give it a shot, because for me it was a game changer. Actually, what I should be doing, really, I have some smaller brushes in the Artist Opus set that would be ideal for this, but I'm stubborn and committed now. Again, people who are following along with this might not be, they might have access to very, very teeny tiny brushes, so. Okay, there's another dot in there. Pull that back out just a bit. Okay, and that one didn't work out quite so well. So I'm going to go back and try to dot in just some Rhinox hide in the middle, just to extend out the pupil just a wee bit. Okay. And I'm going to let that dry a bit more first. What's also nice about doing the eyes first, in fact, I'm going to show you this right now. I'm going to show you this. Can I see? Let's get that dry off. So right now I've got, actually, you know what? Do the full demonstration. Am I doing the red eyes or the blue eyes? Sparks, the answer is neither. I find on this scale for tabletop, just do white and black. Color of eyes on this scale, unless you're doing it for a display piece, don't bother. It is a waste of time. I genuinely believe that. Now, if I were doing this for like box art or a display piece or a contest entry, that would be different. Oops. But I'm not. Well, so now I just splotched white all over the place. So we're just going to grab some water. I'm just going to kind of wick that off. Yeah, I'm going to let that dry for just a moment. And whilst that dries off, I'll show you what I'm talking about too. So that's true for like typical standard human icons. Then there's people like Moore, who I started working on last night, and you'll see his eyes right now are just dots of white. But Moore's eyes are yellow. So what I'm going to do for his is I'm going to take some contrast yellow and just run it into the eye over that white. And then I'll probably try to do a little dot of black in afterwards. Honestly, because I didn't think about it when I was painting him last night. But so for him, I will do a color, but that's because his eyes are predominantly yellow, as opposed to being predominantly white. So there's definitely situations in which that strategy might not work, but even then, like the base principle of doing the eyes with just one color and then with just two colors for the, I don't know the name of eye part colors, but you know what, on humans is the white bit and then the pupil. For like smaller tabletop scale minis, I wouldn't bother. I really wouldn't. Now, granted, that changes if you're painting something like, say, I don't know, a beholder that's 90% eye. In that place, that's different. But for humanoid minis, which have average-sized eyes, and I think not just with the eyes, but with anything on on minis on this scale, when you're considering painting it, and especially if you're doing it, like I said, for use for tabletop. Just a sec while I try and pop the white There we go. That's good. So we got now the eye back in to roughly decent. Things on the dry for a moment. Ask you, when you're considering details and how detailed you want to get with them, ask yourself the question, who's going to notice? Because when you're out like playing this game, nobody is going to be looking at your mini and seeing if you painted Anakin's eye color. Literally nobody is going to do that. So why bother? Again, if you're doing it for display, or if you're doing it for a contest, or if you're just doing it to practice, that's a different story. There are reasons to do it. But I don't think just because is a good one. My opinion, take it or leave it for whatever, but that's where my opinion lies on it. So, now, another strategy for doing arts. Still following that, just two colors, but we've already got, so there's the white in there, and I only did a little dot of the white, so it's probably dried already. Is instead of doing the dot in the middle, I'm going to do a line. Here's another one, so we can thicken that out just a little bit. There we go. And now, the eyes are relatively even. And that was easier because I wasn't trying to just put the dot in the middle. I could position my brush over the eye in the middle and just drag it down, which is much easier to get the positioning on. And you're like, well, Pirate, now you've got this streak of brown over the eye. Yes. And that's why you do the eyes first. Because now I'm going to go back over and paint the rest of the face and cover it up. It is weirdly instinctual, I've found, to want to paint the eyes last. And I think it's because it feels natural to do the larger parts first and the smaller parts last. That feels just, in the way that I think our brains typically work, that feels like a logical process, right? But breaking that for the eyes and doing them first. Now, it does mean you have to be a little more careful painting around them, sure. But if you screw up the eyes, you can just redo it, and now you don't have to worry about redoing the rest of the face around them too if you've slipped. It's an aspect that I have found works really, really well for me. Again, might not work for you. Take it into consideration, give it a shot, see if you like it. Do the eyes first. I also find it's good for motivation for me, because the hardest part of the face is done now. And no matter what else I do, the hardest part is done. So we're just going to very quickly just bop over. And we'll fix up a bit of the nose where I slipped. A little bit down on the under eye. Boom. And there we go. Just neaten up around. And there we go. And look at that. We'll get as close to the camera as I can to see if it focuses. The face looks weird because it's still just one color, but the eyes look good. And you'll note too, they look fairly similar, right? And I use a different technique for each of them. So play around, figure out what works best, and depending on the sculpt and the facial expression of the mini, sometimes doing it one way might work better than the other. So just, you know, play around with it, have fun, experiment, see what works well for you. When it comes to mini painting, I don't think there's any such thing as doing it quote unquote wrong. There are right and wrong ways to do specific techniques, I will grant, but if you're happy with the end result and you got there in the way that you enjoyed the process, then you did it right for you. zoom the camera back out just a little more. So back to the face, we're going to now go over with our next flesh tone, which in this case is Cadian flesh. And we're just going to start picking out some of these raised areas, like the forehead. He does have a scar over his eye, and we're going to do the scar last. Actually, let me zoom a little further in. I'm probably going to spend about as much time on the face as I spent on the highlights for the entire rest of the model. And that is okay, and arguably how it should be done. Because the face is the focal point, right? The face is the focal point. So that's where you want to spend your most time on. It's where the eye is going to be drawn, and so if you're going to spend your time anywhere, spend it on the part of the mini that the eye is most naturally going to be drawn to. And right now I'm just sort of sketching in these areas. And we'll go down to the neck. Alright. Alright, so that's that in there. And there's certain areas that look a little wonky, like the cheek bones look especially like sallow right now. So that's why we have this pink thing I mixed earlier. This part where I mixed the base tone and our new highlight together. We're going to thin that down to a glaze consistency. And we're going to run that in those areas where the two are meeting. And run that in there. And when that dries, that's going to knock back that transition just a little bit. Take that nose. And it will blend it just that little bit better. So you can see, there we go. We've still got, even with just that first one, there's a little bit less prominence there. We can still see that shadow. And if you thinned it properly, it should dry very, very quickly. And again, if you're doing like pro painting, like competition stuff, this step you can spend literally hours going back and forth, highlighting and glazing and blending to get really, really smooth transitions. I'm not going to do that here because this, again, is a tabletop quality one, but you can spend literally hours on that process, and it can be remarkably therapeutic. Whilst that layer on the face dries, we're going to go back to the gloves and the tabard, and we're going to do our final highlight on those, which is going to be Thunderhawk Blue. So highlighting black with blue. This is going to be our edge highlight, our most like prominent point. Pin that down nicely. And then we're just going to just around some of the highest parts of the edge of the tabard with that lining on the outer bit. Picking up the fingers and especially up on the knuckles. Wrist straps, just about the edge of his padded glove bit. Quite informative. I'm listening. At the back of my brain is just chanting saber noises, saber noises. Don't worry, we're going to do the sabers shortly. Once we finish the face, the last bit we'll do is the lightsaber and then the object source lighting. So the lightsaber noises are coming, I promise. And just a little bit of highlighting on the edge of the glove just to get that kind of rounded effect. And then the same along the front tabard. Don't need to go too far down because I'm imagining the light source coming from above. So we don't need to go super far down. Just onto those raised areas. I'm going to call that good. The tabard and the gloves are done. We got that little bit of highlighting on the palm to add some volumes to it. Hey, Cypher, welcome in and welcome back. Hope your trip was fun. Your trip back went smoothly. So now the face is going to be done. So let's go back. We're going to thin down that Cadian flesh tone, and we're just going to punch some of that back up just a wee bit. Around the cheekbones. Chin. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to around because Anakin has that like rather prominent like dimpled chin. So I'm trying to keep a bit of a shadow in the middle to represent that. All right. So whilst that dries off, let's go back to the hair because we haven't touched the hair at all since our initial. So for that, I used still grab for that. All right. So we're going to do Mornfang for his first hair highlight. Did, but I'm knackered. I mean, hopefully it's a good, that was fun knackered. I'm going to keep using the Artist Opus brush for this because the hair can benefit from that. I don't want to get super ridiculously complex with the hair. We're just going to pick out over some of these larger strands. Honestly, hair, even beyond eyes, is the thing I find most daunting to paint. Still not over best area. Yep, that seems to be the general dynamic a lot of people are having right now. Not being super delicate with it. Just going to pick out some of the largest strands. And again, this is very stark right now. You can, like, there's a big difference between the various layers of hair. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the skin. And we're going to mix up just a little bit of a glaze to run over that, just to punch that down just a little bit. Just going to run that over. And for the hair, I'm just going to run it over the whole thing. Just to sort of blend those two together a bit. So we still have the depth, but it doesn't look quite as stark. think really only 1 or 2 coats is all that's going to take. So we can see we've already gotten a little more blend going there. Whilst those two dry, I'm going to shift ever so slightly into doing a base on some of the metallics, which will be for the saber and the little metallic elements on the belt, which there aren't many, but there's a couple, so I want to make them stand out just a little bit. We are not going to use the fancy brushes for this, because metallics will destroy your brushes over time. Never use your fancy brushes with metallics, because they do have little flecks of metal in them, which is how they make the shiny bit, and it will destroy them. Being used for metallics is part of my brush life cycle. Like, they start out being used for fancy work, then they go down to being used for metallics, then they go down to being a dry brush. It is the progression of life for a paintbrush. And again, this is Dark Silver by Pro Acryl. One of my favorite metallic paints I've ever used. It is so delightfully smooth to apply. And we're going to do just the same over with their glove. Some little buckly bits. That. Trying to tighten the other one. Okay. I didn't explicitly call this out on the recipe card because it's not necessary, but there is a little like bronze bit on there too. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Screaming Bell for his little decorative element, just to break up the belt a little more, which I did on mine. So that's going to go this line right here, and back to the silver for the one next to it. There we go. It's that little bit of extra detailing. Even the music's building up for the saber noises. It is. It is. Alright, but first, back to the face. Go to our final highlight, which is going to be Kislev flesh. Again, same thing as before. This is a big advantage of using a wet palette. I've still got that wet paint from before, so I can mix that mid-tone hybrid. All right, and now same process as before for the face. We're just going to do it even smaller. So just right along the nose. Tips of the cheekbones. And that dimpled chin. Cheekbone along a little further. There we go. And again, looks a little dark right now, but really, highlighting faces is very, very similar to doing makeup. Like, I've seen a lot of like makeup artists do this where, like, you know, as they're going through the process, right, they've got it starts out really stark and then they kind of blend down. It's really the exact same principle. And to that extent, to that point, if you want to learn more about highlighting faces on minis, watch makeup tutorial YouTubers. It genuinely helps because the techniques are pretty much the same, just on a smaller scale. It's a little too light, so we're just gonna glaze back down. Right. And there, I'm gonna say for tabletop quality, that face is pretty decent. I'll take it. I will take it. Zoom in. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. Let me lower the light a little bit so we can kind of... It's got some volumes to it. It looks alright. I'll take it. Especially looks alright from, you know... Looks pretty damn good for about 3 feet away, so... Looks to... You can kind of compare it to the one here. You know, again, here's one I prepared earlier. Well, that's actually gone very white. Very white. Let me lower the ISO there a bit. There we go. Here's one I prepared earlier. Come on. Very similar. In fact, we can see. By following that recipe, they're pretty identical. I'm actually really happy with that because that was going to be the test for me of my recipe, is how close does it look to the one I painted before. Pretty damn identical. I'm pleased with that. All right, so I'm calling time on the face. So let's go back to the hair. What we're going to do is take just a little bit of Steel Legion Drab, and we're going to mix that into the Mournfang I used, because Anakin has very dark brown hair. So we're just going to use this for just a bit of a highlight to get this kind of dark, but almost like a little kind of sandy brown, a little bit. Steel Legion Drab itself would be too light, so we're just mixing it into the Mournfang. Just to get that little bit of a... Alright, and again, just running along the more pronounced parts. These large strands, especially around the top, and again, thinking about where the light source is coming from above in this case. Well, at least the general light source, because he's holding another light source. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But that's going to be done slightly differently. Get some parts over the back. There. And General Skywalker is, for the most part, ready to take the battlefield. However, as we have been discussing, there's one very important thing we haven't painted yet. So let me take just a moment to clear my paints out of the way, just so that I can try and keep my desk somewhat organized. Where's my base paints? That's what I was missing. So you just get this brief moment of Pirate is organizing his desk in a futile attempt to pretend that he knows what he's doing. So give me just one moment to try to... I keep my my paints alphabetized, so I know how to look for them easily. So I'm just trying to, you know, this is just me trying to remember how the alphabet works. There we go. These two. All right, so got the. All right, here we go. Have a quick swig of water. All right. Let us prepare the lightsaber. Thousand Suns Blue. All right. Let me zoom out. Let me zoom out. What's that? That report from the, I think it was it Ewan McGregor who they kept having to have redo takes for filming Phantom Menace because he kept making lightsaber noises. I don't know if that's true or not, but I like to think it is. Because how could you not? You're filming Star Wars. How can you not make lightsaber noises? I have to be just a little careful because at this stage I don't want to slip and get glue all over everything. I think that's pretty decent for the base. What we are going to do though real quick is, because I haven't done this part yet, bust out the Nuln oil. I want to pop that over the saber handle. Which a lot of metallics in these like larger scale ones I haven't been doing, like the bases for example. You can see Anakin's on a metal plating base. I'm not going to be painting that in true metallics because I don't want it to distract. But the saber blades and some of the little details on them I do in true metallics because I want those to be a focal thing. One of the best parts of Beat Saber too, what, just making lightsaber noises? Going zoom zoom to the beat. So. Now here comes the tricky part. This is the part to think about when painting the saber blades. Because you think about how lightsabers look in like the movies and the TV shows, right? You got the color on the outer part, and it gets gradually closer to white the further they go in. Hey, Ghost Story, Gundam Wing cross stitch. That sounds fun. I approve. And they can do that in the movies and the shows because it's CGI, so you can, no matter what position it is, you can have that be the thing. You can't do that for a static mini. I mean, granted, you could if you wanted to get real wild with it and do like LEDs and stuff, but we're not doing that. So what you have to do, and I'll pull up the Anakin I completed earlier to demonstrate my point. So you have to think about what is known as the golden angle for the minis, which is the part where they're going to be viewed from most frequently. So if we look around Anakin's saber on the one I've done, top is still mostly that just deep blue, and then on the side of the blade is where I've see it, there we go, on the side of the blade is where I've got that kind of lighter fade in going, and that's because I figure the angle that I want most likely to be looked at for is either on from the front, or because I want where I want the glow to, and I've done the glow on him, and we're going to be doing that in a little bit later on. I want it to be on the opposite side of the glow. So that's what I've done here, and that's what we're going to do with this one now. Is think about what is the angle that you want it to be viewed from most, like for photographs, and build the glow going in with that in mind. Because unfortunately, I say with lightsabers, it's literally impossible to make it look that way from every single angle. Again, unless you replace it with like a super thin LED or something. And you can, if you want, just leave it as a solid color, and that's fine. Like if you don't want to mess with all the highlighting and shading on it, you can totally just leave it as a solid color. It'll look fine. Black light for the light, that would be fun. That would be real fun. I should try that at some point. That's a really fun idea. All right. So with that in mind, I've thinned down the next one, which is Araman Blue, which is a layer paint. And now we're just going to run that along. Just going to run it along. So now we've got that nice brighter blue. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, because you can do it like on either side. There we go. I'll let that sit for a moment. That's what I'm going to be doing with Maul, for example. With Maul, especially because of how he's holding his saber out, I'm going to do the front and the back, and then the top is going to be more that solid red. Because look at with this type of positioning from him, this is the angle from which he's going to be viewed. So this is the part that I want to have, whereas I don't want it to be like from the top. Now there is a case to be granted. There is a case to be made in doing it from the top. If you are painting it predominantly to look good on a battlefield, because you might, if you're standing and actually playing the game constantly, you might be looking at it more frequently top down. So there's a case to make it with that kind of glow going from the top. It won't look as good photographed from the front, but if you expect it, most of the time you're going to be looking at it from top down, it's individual use cases. Top isn't it's not going to be the golden angle for the Mini, but it might be, you know, the way that you want to look at it most. And I see that stretch. Thank you very much, Fluffy. Let's do a quick big old stretch. Oh, yeah, because I've been sitting hunched over doing this for a bit. Oh, roll the shoulders out. Oh, and if anyone is watching the YouTube or the VOD and has been painting along, do the same. Take a moment and roll the shoulders out, because if you've been painting along like me, you've probably been in full-on gremlin mode and are feeling it in your shoulders right about now, because I certainly am. So thank you for that stretch redemption, Fluffy. All right. Now, those two are done. Now we're gonna have some fun with it. We're gonna go back to white. I've tried it with silver. I've tried it with white. Both work. I'm using white because that's what I put on the recipe card. I tried silver for Obi-Wan's and it worked fine there too. Tried silver for Venturesses. You can either use a white, or I liked Reaper's filigree silver because it has a nice like shine to it, but I think ultimately it doesn't make a huge amount of difference with what I'm going to do to it. So we're going to just now very lightly, oops, not lighter than that, run along the edge with white. I think it's somewhat thin. I want to let some of that Araman Blue still show through. Do the same on the back. Alright. So we'll let that go on. Alright. And honestly, again, you could leave it like that if you wanted. I would say maybe make the white a little thinner if you were going to, but, you know, a lot of the sabers look white too. I don't have a card out, but like, if you look at it on like the card art that comes with this game, the middle of the sabers, frequently they've drawn it white. But what we're going to do is use a contrast paint on it. I've chosen Briar Queen Chill because it's a nice, very light blue. And I think it works for Anakin's saber. But there are plenty of others. And if you don't want to use Citadel's contrast for this, there's Army Painter Speed Paint. Vallejo have their contrast/speed paint alternative, whose name is escaping me right now. Or you can always just take a regular acrylic and thin it down really, really well. That would work too. Nope, no worries, Sparks. Enjoy the luck. So I'm going to take that and run that over the saber that I just painted white. Thin it too. I'm going to give it a quick glaze over the whole thing, just to bring it all together. There we go. And there we have a pretty decent looking lightsaber. Now we could call it here. We could entirely justifiably call it here and say this is good, this is very much ready for tabletop with the exception of needing the base to be done. Which I'm not doing the base today because I'm going to batch paint the bases all when I'm done with this project. But we're going to take it one more step. We're going to do what I did on mine, which is we're going to add this little bit of object source lighting. Because Anakin is holding his saber super close to his face. And so you look at them in the movies, you look at them in the comics, you look at them in the TV shows, lightsabers emit light. They emit a colored light. So I really like to do a bit of object source light, like, you know, and you especially see it a lot. They use it a lot for thematic stuff too, like, you know, the red saber up by the face has the red lighting. You know, in like Return of the Jedi, you got the iconic shot of Luke hiding. Half his face is lit blue, half his face is lit red. The struggle between light and dark. Lightsaber glow colors feature so prominently and stuff. I want to have it on the Mini too. Hey, 1000 Young, welcome in. And I like to use contrasts for the glow. I like to use contrasts for OSL because you can build up gradually. What we're also going to do though to get it, but we're doing a very light color over very dark because his tabard is that really dark black. So this is going to take a bit of effort to get up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small dry brush and I'm going to take some of my white and I'm going to very lightly dry brush it onto the areas that I want the OSL to be. Just because that'll make it pop that little bit more. It'll make it that little bit starker. Again, this is one of the areas where it could be a little easier if I hadn't have attached the lightsaber first. But I didn't. That, I think, wasn't quite. There's a little too much left on there. Streakier than I wanted it to be. Just dry brush just a bit over the face. There we go. That's bit onto the hair. I want to focus more on the face because hair isn't as reflective. And then a bit onto the tabard and up over the shoulder. And so we look at that, and honestly right now, even with just the white, we can see the foundations of the OSL. And it's kind of interesting how the way our eyes play tricks on us, right? Because all I did was dry brush on white. But because it's next to that light, very light blue, it even kind of looks blue, doesn't it? It's not. It's white. And like if I shift it around, you can see that it's pure white. But there's an argument to be made even for just leaving it like that. Just that little bit of that glow. But because I can never leave well enough alone, and because I always have to be extra and push everything to the furthest I can possibly push it, as we have well established, I will always overcommit to the bit. We're going to go back to that same Briar Queen chill. I like to use the same contrast that I used for the lightsaber, for, well, I assume is obvious reasons, keeps it consistent. There is a case, though, to be made to maybe use something slightly more vibrant for the blade and a slightly desaturated one for what you painted onto. I could see there being a logic behind that. Ultimately, it's down to personal preference. But in my case, in the interest of keeping things simple, we're going to stick with Briar Queen Chill. And I'm going to water this down quite a bit, because contrasts do tend to be fairly highly pigmented. Same with speed paints. So I don't want this to... What we don't want to happen here is we don't want to completely overshadow the base tone. And that's why we've got the dry brush for the parts that are going to be most highlighted, but I'm going to extend beyond the parts I just dry brushed, because that way it'll seem like the light's diffusing. And just over there. A little bit of Briar Queen Chill. And then very carefully onto the face. This is very subtle. But again, I want it to be, because I don't want to overpower. I want it to look like light reflecting off his skin. I don't want it to look like his skin is blue. And we're going to just carefully go a little bit further. And the advantage of doing the dry brush contrast method is the contrast is going to run into the recesses where the dry brush didn't catch. So we'll still get that kind of light coloring in the shaded recesses, but it'll be darker because we didn't dry brush it first. And again, this type of thing is one of those things you can spend hours going through refining, but I find the dry brush contrast method gets you a pretty good effect pretty quickly. And we're focusing on speed and getting it onto the tabletop. And there we go. I'm actually going to call that good enough. Got a little bit of blue there over the face. And I'm going to say, with that, General Anakin Skywalker is ready to take the battlefield. About 2 hours start to finish. And honestly, for that result, 2 hours, start, finish, I'm pretty damn chuffed with that. Would have been even faster if I wasn't, chatting and demonstrating and stopping the chat with stream. Boom. Sorted. Again, the base isn't done, but we'll do the base later. So I'm pretty pleased with that, with the focus being, again, getting it onto the tabletop relatively quickly. 2 hours, I know it sounds like a long time. In mini painting context, it really isn't, because you can take quite some time, and you can spend more time and punch out more if you want. And that's it. You can stop at, you don't have to do the full, you could do only to the first layer of highlights that I did to get it onto the tabletop quickly. You could stop in, if you're following the guide, you could stop at phase 2 and do the lightsaber there, and it would still look totally fine on a tabletop. As I say, commission project. And because, I do this a lot, I like to take it to that extra step, extra level. But if you want to just speed paint, boom, get them ready, done, sorted, get out there, you can do that. Also, you can seal it with varnish. You should always seal your minis with that with varnish, especially if you're gaming with them. The sealing isn't the end part. You can always go back and do highlights later as well. If you want to get them onto a tabletop, let's say you're rushing for a tournament, you can get them done, sealed onto the table for the tournament, and go back and do the next steps after too. Right, mini painting time is sort of on the scales of geological time. It can be, but it can also be quick. And that's one of the things that I really want to try and push with these streams and the painting guides and so these VODs going up onto the YouTube and whatnot. I want to kind of push back against that concept. And it can be very slow. But what I find a lot of the videos that focus on speed painting do is they approach painting like a chore. Painting can be both fast and enjoyable. That's not some mythical golden grail that cannot possibly be obtained. You can do it. It can be both fun and effective. It's all about the mentality you approach with it. And the part that I struggle with, and the part that I'm really enjoying getting to demonstrate for myself, is even with these kind of tutorial long form videos, is by planning it out. That helps so much, because I knew exactly what my paints were. So I had all my paints prepped, ready to go. I knew my steps. That took so much of it. Like, this went so much faster than the first one I painted, because I was done experimenting. I knew what I was doing. Which is why it's always useful, by the way, for doing a test model. If you're planning a color scheme for an army, do a test model first. Write it down. Write the paints down. That's the part I struggle with. Write them down. I bought a little erase thing that I can now... In fact, I'll show you. It's sitting right here. I bought this thing. This is all the stuff that's on wall right now. These are my base tones for Darth Maul. Please, I apologize for my handwriting. My handwriting's atrocious. But get something like that if you're experimenting. Write down your paints as you go. Because otherwise you'll do what I do and get to the end and go, oh, wait, which mix did the... Oh. See, writing them down as you go is a good thing to do. But that's the stream. That's the stream for the day. We finished Anakin. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And thank you, if you've been watching the VOD on the YouTube, thank you very much. And if you're interested in this, in particular, this game, and in supporting me, there is my affiliate link for Star Wars Shatterpoint. You don't have to buy the game through it. If you click it and just go and look at it, that helps me out. Just give me those engagement numbers. That really, really helps. The community has been great about supporting me in this endeavor. This behind the scenes, this is the biggest like chance I've had in this type of sphere, and so I really appreciate people showing up and showing the support. And I say clicking the link, following through is the easiest way to do it, because it follows through into other things. That's why I haven't posted about it yet, but I mentioned it on stream on Thursday. Atomic Mass Games were very kind and sent me this month's set of Shatterpoint releases as well. And the reason I got those was because of how well the previous streams have done. So works out well for me, because if the streams continue to do well, they might continue to send me stuff, and then I can use that to continue to make cool content for all of you. So it's this wonderful symbiotic relationship where everyone gets to be happy. So click the links, share the socials. I'm going to call the stream here. I'm going to stop the recording. So if you're on the YouTube, this is where it'll end. Thank you very much. The link that just went there is also in the video description. So click and check it out. And keep an eye out for more of these, because I've got 2 more coming. So we'll see you next time for those.